Hello, and welcome to Astrology Explained. Today I want to talk about Sagittarius, Gemini, identity and knowledge, and how it relates to heaven and hell. So, in my first video I talked about how how fire represents truth and freedom. Now, in order to understand why Sagittarius, which is at the bottom of the Zodiac, represents truth and freedom, we need to understand Gemini. Now, if Sagittarius rules truth, then naturally Gemini is the lie. Right? Gemini's trait, one of their traits, is that they lie a lot. Why is this? Is because Gemini is kind of an antisocial sign, right? It stays in its head, right? Much like Virgo, which also is ruled by Mercury, right? Mercury tends to isolate, right? It doesn't really communicate. Although Gemini is an air sign, it's more of an indirect air sign, right? So it lies. Now, truth is Sagittarius. Now, Sagittarius is a fire sign that is found. Let me write it here. It is a fire sign that is found at the bottom of the Zodiac, right? It's found at the very bottom. So what does that remind you of? Hell, right? If you study the Bible, right, hell is below us, right? It's at the bottom, right? Now, why does that matter? Well, truth leads to knowledge. That's Aquarius' symbol, and its phrase is, I know. Now, why does truth lead to knowledge, and why is knowledge the ultimate form of hell? Well, in order to understand that, we need to understand Gemini and how it relates to identity. Aries' statement is, I am, right? So you are, right? There was a quote by Rene Descartes where he says, I think, therefore, I am. Right? So what does that mean? It means that we are a product of our thoughts. Another thing is, Gemini, which is silent, it also rules the hands. Right? Gemini rules the hands. So when you act, you're not really speaking, you're not really communicating, you're using your hands. A good example of this is boxing. Right? In boxing, if you get angry and you want to act, right, you don't really, you can be aggressive in your words, but you take it, the anger transfers over to your hands, and you wanna hurt someone, right? You wanna do something bad, right? So, in the story of Adam and Eve, right, the tree of knowledge, right, the devil tells Eve to coerce Adam to eat the apple and to gain knowledge. And because of that, sin was born, right? We created sin in that way. Because what it's saying in the Bible is that knowledge without direction, right? Knowledge without identity is the definition of hell, right? And we see that in today's society, right? In today's society, we have cell phones, we have all this plethora of knowledge, but we don't know who we are. Right? We have no idea who we are. So knowledge and truth, with truth which leads to knowledge, without identity, right, is a godless wasteland. Right? There's no God, there's no order. It becomes absolute anarchy. And that is the definition of hell. That is why truth is associated with Sagittarius, which is associated with hell. Another thing is that God is our identity, right? I'm going to circle this. So, when Moses was coming down from Mount Sinai, and they asked him, because he said, God presented himself to me, and they asked him, what is the name of the Lord? How did God address himself? And Moses said something very interesting. He said, I am. Right? God represented himself as I am. So what it's saying is that God, right, also the Son, the Father in astrology, but there's more parts to him, which we'll discuss later. Right? The sun, like I said before, it illuminates. It shows the true colors of whatever constellation it is in. So what the Bible story is trying to tell us is that God is found in our thoughts and in our identity. What we think of in silence ends up turning into what we do, right? It's not communicative, right? Like Libra, which is a communicative sign, but it's more action-based. So the definition of hell, I'll go over it one more time, is knowledge without direction, right? Knowledge, by the way, is everywhere, right? And Sagittarius, like I said before, is a fire sign. Now, what do we know about fire? It spreads. And another thing is, Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, the planet of expansion, right? Jupiter expands because knowledge is everywhere, right? If you know something, it's like infinite. Knowledge is infinite. You can have all the knowledge in the universe, right? You could know things about cameras, you could know things about architecture, you could know things about writing, whatever it is, right? And what's cool is the Greeks, they were obsessed with Jupiter, right? Because in Greek, the name Jupiter, the name Jupiter is Zeus, right? So why would the Greeks, one of the smartest ancient civilizations, why would they worship Jupiter? Well, because this is the sign of truth, freedom, but it also rules education. Education. So it's funny actually. Education is at the bottom of the zodiac, right? What is it telling us? Is that you can go to school, you can learn everything, you could literally know everything. But if there is no I am, if there is no identity, if there is no direction, you're in hell, essentially. You're literally in hell because you have no idea what to do. Freedom without purpose, it leads to anarchy. Another thing I want to talk about is the sun has 9 stars. Right? The sun has 9 stars. Sagittarius' number is 9. Another thing you'll notice is in Dante's Inferno, there are 9 layers to hell. I watched somewhere that 9 is the lowest frequency. People who have a lot of 9s in their chart, they tend to be more troublesome, right? They tend to do low frequency things. Another thing is Leo, which we discussed has 9 stars, right? It exposes the truth, like I said before, it illuminates and exposes the truth about every single sign. So fire in astrology, because of Sagittarius, fire represents truth and freedom, right? And that is why the sun, right, has 9 stars, and it descends into the southern hemisphere, the lower half, and it illuminates what each constellation is. So yeah, that is all for today.